Tonight on Newswatch, a pathway to citizenship. A look at the immigration reform measure making its way through the Senate.
Plus, how the government is cracking down against protesters in Turkey.
And Christians in one Russian region risk their lives to share the gospel. All this and more tonight on Newswatch. The Senate is in the middle of a major political debate. Good evening. I'm Mark Martin.
And I'm Wendy Griffith. The divisive issue, immigration reform. Even though lawmakers from both parties support the bill, there are still some serious questions about it.
And those questions could make the legislation hard to pass. Ephraim Graham has more in tonight's top story.
It's a landmark bill that could put millions on the path to citizenship.
Times change, and the immigration system has to change with those times.
The Senate voted 82-15 to move the legislation forward into debate. But that's only the first of many hurdles. Many of the Republicans who voted yes Tuesday say they won't support the bill in a final vote unless its border security language is strengthened, a position backed up by the GOP leadership in the House.
Especially in the area of border security and internal enforcement of the system, I'm concerned that it doesn't go far enough.
The bill would offer a 13-year path to citizenship for the 11 million immigrants who have overstayed their visas or arrived in the U.S. illegally since the end of 2011. They would be required to pay fines and back taxes, and they couldn't participate in any government social programs during the process.
So this is no cakewalk. But it's the only way we can make sure that everyone who's here is playing by the same rules as ordinary families.
The plan also expands visas for low-skilled workers and entrepreneurs and requires employers to check the legal status of every worker.
A failure to have a rational and positive immigration program will choke this economy. It's not a good idea.
But while many lawmakers seem ready to move forward and begin debating this bipartisan bill, conservative leaders and voters still have objections to the measure, which makes it politically difficult for Republicans in Congress. It is still unclear if it will pass in the House. But the bill could be President Obama's big second-term accomplishment, and many Republicans hope it will help them improve their image with Latino voters. Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
For more on immigration reform, we turn now to Derek Morgan. He is the Vice President of Domestic and Economic Policy at the Heritage Foundation. Derek, what would this reform cost Americans?
You know, Mark, this reform would be very costly because it has amnesty in it. And what that means is that you're taking about 11.5 million people who are here unlawfully, and you're putting them on a path to citizenship, which also puts them on a path to all of our means-tested welfare and entitlement programs. So we did a study and we looked at this and we found out that over their lifetimes, it would cost the American taxpayers about $6.3 trillion.
Wow. Well, supporters of this reform measure say they want an easier immigration system. Does this bill actually simplify the process?
Well, it doesn't do enough in that regard. In fact, there's a lot of immigration reforms that we could support that would make it easier for those who come to the United States from around the world to settle here, to perhaps go to college here and be able to stay and start their families here. We think those would be good reforms. The problem is that you've got a bill that also includes this massive amnesty, and that's the costly part of the bill that we think the Congress should drop.
Do you think this bill, when all is said and done, will actually become law?
I think we're a long way from there. It did pass its first step, and it got to be debated on the Senate floor, and that's the status that we're in right now. And of course, that means that it's opened up to amendments, and we'll see how many amendments are allowed to be voted on. But if it's a fairly open process like they're promising, then I think many of those amendments will point out some of the failures of this bill, and it may become very difficult to pass. And then, of course, even if it passes the Senate, it has to go to a much more skeptical House.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on those amendments?
Absolutely. I think you'll see amendments that try to sharpen some of the problems with this bill, with border security, for example. There's one amendment by Senator John Cornyn that seeks to do that. There are other amendments that on different aspects of the bill. For example, in the Judiciary Committee, part of the problem with this process is it seems to have been a bill that was designed ahead of time to be a compromise bill, and they're really not letting a lot of the amendments through. So the amendment process I think that you will see are amendments that accentuate some of the problems, like the price tag that we were just talking about. So there will be amendments to try to limit or curtail welfare benefits, for example, particularly during the legalization stage. I think you'll see amendments along those lines.
Okay, Derek Morgan, the Vice President of Domestic and Economic Policy at the Heritage Foundation. Thanks, Derek. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
The fallout from NSA leaks are taking center stage in Washington. The agency's director saying today the surveillance programs disrupted dozens of terrorist events. Meanwhile, the leaker, Edward Snowden, is still in hiding, but a Chinese newspaper says it was able to locate and interview him. Heather Sells reports.
The U.S. government may be hunting Edward Snowden, but the National Security Agency leaker knows better than most what methods are being used to track him.
If they want to get you, they'll get you in time.
The South China Morning Post newspaper says it was able to interview Snowden today. In excerpts released on its website, it quotes him saying, "I am not here to hide from justice. I am here to reveal criminality." Snowden went on to say that he's had several chances to leave Hong Kong, but that he's chosen to stay and fight the U.S. because he has faith in Hong Kong's rule of law. Prosecutors plan to use parts of the Espionage Act to file criminal charges against Snowden. That brings with it a possible penalty of life in prison.
He has said from the start that he knows that once he made the choice to inform the public about these programs, that all of his options were bad options. I think it's safe to say that he won't be living a free and unrestrained life.
In Washington, lawmakers are beginning a series of investigations into the classified information Snowden revealed. They're also questioning whether they were misled by NSA Director James Clapper in March.
Does the NSA collect any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans?
No, sir.
It does not.
Not wittingly.
The American Civil Liberties Union is suing the Obama administration over the NSA's program of collecting phone and internet records. The ACLU is demanding the administration end the program and purge all records. On Tuesday, intelligence officials tried to soothe Congress in an extended briefing. FBI, Justice Department, and other intelligence officials testified that the programs are necessary to protect America and do not violate privacy rights. Legislators are still worried about the invasion of privacy and believe the courts and Congress should have greater oversight. But many agree that the leaks compromise national security.
Anybody who reveals classified information is undermining our intelligence programs.
Heather Sells, CBN News.
The Supreme Court has refused to hear a free speech case about showing graphic abortion images. A Colorado ruling blocked abortion protesters from displaying images of aborted fetuses near a church where they might upset children. That ruling now stands. The case stems from a 2005 protest near an outdoor service at an Episcopal church that's accused of supporting abortion. A judge later barred protesters from displaying the, quote, gruesome images. An appeals court upheld that order, saying it only applied to the church and the protesters and could not be applied generally. But some experts say it eats away at freedom of speech. At its annual meeting today, the Southern Baptist Convention formally opposed the Boy Scouts' new policy allowing gay scouts. But it stopped short of calling for troops to leave, which are chartered by churches. It did, however, call on the Scouts to remove the executives who tried to allow gays as members and leaders without consulting with their church sponsors. Delegates also passed a resolution opposing prejudice against people who suffer with mental health issues.
Turning overseas now, Israel's border with Syria is getting more tense. Austria began withdrawing its nearly 400 UN peacekeepers today from the Syrian border. This leaves just more than 500 peacekeepers of the UN force that has monitored the Golan since 1974. Last week, Syrian rebels overran a crossing point, and fighting from the Syrian civil war has threatened the UN positions. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says this week the Austrian withdrawal shows Israel can only rely on itself for its security.
After nearly 2 weeks of protests, Turkey's government cracked down on demonstrators who are angry about Islamist restrictions imposed by their leaders. It is the biggest challenge so far to Prime Minister Erdogan's 10-year rule. John Wagi has more.
In Istanbul, an angry quiet has settled in Taksim Square, the place that honors Ataturk, the father of secular Turkey, and the site where protesters were attacked by police with water cannons Tuesday night. Several are dead and thousands have been wounded in demonstrations that started in Istanbul late last month and spread to Ankara, the capital, and more than 75 other cities. It began with a protest over the development of a park, but it has become a secular demonstration of anger against the restrictions of the ruling Islamist party, headed by Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Turkey is a NATO ally, and Erdogan has a close relationship with President Obama. At a rally on John F. Kennedy Street in Ankara near the U.S. Embassy, this man shouts Tayyip Erdogan is a walking dictatorship. This is a dictatorship. We are against dictatorship. Protesters say the demonstrations are partly a spontaneous groundswell.
They are not from any movement, but they just feel solidarity with the people who are participating in the protests.
Despite the anger in the streets, the government remains defiant, saying it will listen to complaints, but knowing that it retains popular support among Turkey's millions of Islamist sympathizers. On Monday, the president signed a law restricting alcohol sales and banning its advertising. And the government unveiled its hardball tactics against the protesters a day later. The newspaper headline in the Turkish kiosks reads, "Shame." As a Sunni Muslim, Erdogan has been among the most vocal leaders in opposing Iranian nuclear weapons. He has also backed the opposition to Syria's President Bashar Assad. And Turkey houses dozens of U.S. tactical nuclear weapons and thousands of American military people on its soil. All good reasons for keeping an eye on what happens next in the former capital of the Ottoman Empire. John Wagi, CBN News.
Coming up, why hands-free phone devices may be just as dangerous for drivers.
In 2008, my husband Gary departed for heaven. I was still grieving. And then to find out I had cancer, I began praying, God, how do I do this? Where do I do this? Cancer Treatment Centers of America was the place. Dr. Neelam outlined a plan that would take care of my mind and my body, and she prayed with me.
For Bible-believing Christians, we're able to pray with them in a much deeper way as they begin to really rely upon their faith.
At Cancer Treatment Centers of America, we believe in the power of faith and prayer as indispensable allies in the fight against complex and advanced stage cancer.
I'm back in Telluride on the mountain skiing. I feel strong and healthy.
Advanced medicine and technology.
And I am a survivor.
The warm embrace of the spirit and the power of prayer.
These are happy tears.
Please go to cancercenter.com/faith. Appointments available now. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Care that never quits.
Remember the happy days when he said everyone gets health insurance. But now, Congress says 7 million Americans will lose their health insurance, and your insurance rates could increase by 200%. Some health plans even get hit with a 40% tax and over $700 billion in Medicare cuts. So now we're really sad. But you can be happy again by getting the Obamacare Survival Guide. It's already a #1 New York Times bestseller, and over 500,000 Americans have gotten a copy. Newsmax says it's the best guide to the new law. You can get your copy at Obamacare911.com. It gives you the tips, strategies, and loopholes you need to know. Get your copy of the Obamacare Survival Guide at stores everywhere for $19.95, or get the internet-only offer of just $4.95 and save $15. Go to Obamacare911.com to claim your copy now.
Welcome back. As folks start hitting the road for summer vacation, gas prices are on the minds of many. The Energy Department says drivers can expect to pay about $3.53 a gallon this summer. That's actually down 10 cents from last year. Currently, AAA reports an average price of $3.63 a gallon. Illinois and Michigan are seeing a spike in prices, both with an average of more than $4.15. Wow, that's brutal.
I hate it when it's over $4.
Oh.
Yikes.
Well, warning for drivers who use those hands-free devices to talk on the phone, send text messages, and control the radio.
Yeah, a new AAA study finds they are extremely distracting, worse than actually holding your phone and driving. A new study finds that just because your hands are free doesn't mean your brain is free. Turns out all those voice-activated gadgets in cars are not making driving any safer. The AAA research finds drivers who use hands-free cell phones are at least 2 times more distracted than those who don't. And the speech-to-text function in car systems that lets you keep your hands on the wheel is even worse. The drivers are 3 times more distracted.
Your brain is so overloaded with these, speech-to-text tasks or talking on a cell phone that you have very little residual capacity to attend to the roadway.
Car companies have been marketing hands-free systems to new car buyers for years. Younger drivers are especially attracted to the fact that they can control their music, answer emails, even check their Facebook page using their voice. But AAA is concerned about the safety and wants some restrictions.
This speech-to-text technology should only be able to be used or limited to use for drivers when the vehicle is stopped.
AAA is urging the car and electronics industries to come up with technology that limits use of voice-activated devices to basic driving-related activities, such as the windshield wipers or climate control. I think it makes sense, Mark, because, I know I have hands-free in my car, and I love it, but at the same time, I can be driving somewhere and I'm having a conversation. I miss my exit.
Sure. Oh, yeah, you get so involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So they're probably right. They need some warnings on this.
I would
devices.
say so, most definitely. We'll be right back.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes now.
If you have Medicare and have a chronic breathing condition, you can take your medication using an inhaler. Or this, a portable nebulizer from Med4Home. Independent studies have shown a nebulizer may be more effective and easier to use than just an inhaler. Impressive. It's like getting hospital-quality treatment at home. So call Med4Home today to find out more. Med4Home is a specialty pharmacy that's here to help you however they can. They'll deal with your doctor, the paperwork, even ship for free. And their pharmacists and respiratory therapists are available 24/7. What's more, your nebulizer and medications may even be covered by your Part B benefits. For a better treatment at a much better price, call Med4Home now to learn how a portable nebulizer can help you start breathing better today. For more information, call 1-800-210-5821.
Remember the happy days when he said everyone gets health insurance. But now, Congress says 7 million Americans will lose their health insurance, and your insurance rates could increase by 200%. Some health plans even get hit with a 40% tax and over $700 billion in Medicare cuts. So now, we're really sad. But you can be happy again by getting the Obamacare Survival Guide. It's already a #1 New York Times bestseller, and over 500,000 Americans have gotten a copy. Newsmax says it's the best guide to the new law. You can get your copy at Obamacare911.com. It gives you the tips, strategies, and loopholes you need to know. Get your copy of the Obamacare Survival Guide at stores everywhere for $19.95, or get the internet-only offer of just $4.95 and save $15. Go to Obamacare911.com to claim your copy now.
Russia has approved a bill banning gay propaganda. It also prevents kids from getting information on homosexuality. It's an effort to promote traditional Russian values instead of so-called Western liberalism, something the Russian Orthodox Church and Kremlin say is corrupting the country's youth. The bill passed by a vote of, get this, 436-0. Russia is also considering banning foreign gay couples from adopting Russian orphans. Chechnya, Dagestan, North Caucasus. You may not have heard of them, but they're some of the most violent places in Russia.
As George Thomas explains in tonight's Focus Report, radical Muslims are still fighting for control of the region.
In a small 3-bedroom house on the outskirts of town, Ramza and his wife spend a few quiet moments reading the Bible and praying.
I'm not a political person, never have been, never want to be. My focus is on loving people.
Speaking on the condition we hide his identity, Ramza is among a handful of Christians secretly sharing the gospel in one of Russia's most dangerous places.
I've been arrested many times. I'm constantly watched by the Russian police and radical Islamists, but I will never stop preaching. This is my home.
Home is the North Caucasus region. For nearly 2 decades, radical Muslims have fought Russian forces almost daily to take over the region for Islam. Their goal to turn 5 Russian republics, including Chechnya and Dagestan, into one huge Islamic emirate.
People of North Caucasus have historically practiced a traditional form of Islam, but that's changed as more people embrace a radical form of Islam.
The 2 brothers suspected in the Boston Marathon attacks were born and lived in the North Caucasus before moving to the U.S. In 2012, older brother Tamerlan Tsarnaev spent 6 months here in Dagestan. He made regular visits to this mosque in the capital city. CBN News tried to get an on-camera interview with the imam. He refused. Tamerlan reportedly met 2 known Islamic terrorists at the mosque, both of whom were later killed in shootouts with Russian forces. Investigators have yet to establish if Tamerlan received any training or had any links to known jihadist networks operating in the region. Chechnya was once the epicenter of the Islamist battle. Russia fought 2 brutal wars against Chechen fighters in the 1990s, trying to stop them from Islamizing the province. Yelena Mutraeva was only a year old when the first war started.
As I grew older, I heard stories from my parents of how horrible it was back then.
Tens of thousands were killed, hundreds of thousands of Chechens displaced.
I remember my parents and I crossing the border to a neighboring province once the bombs started falling.
It left the province in ruins. The capital city, Grozny, was decimated.
Several years ago, Grozny was described as the most destroyed city in the world. Not anymore. The Russian government has been pouring in billions of dollars, and in fact today Chechnya receives the most money out of all 85 provinces.
The evidence is everywhere. Rebuilt streets, walls once riddled with bullet holes are gone. New apartments going up, skyscrapers rising to the skies.
I don't think anyone could have imagined the changes happening this fast.
And the Kremlin-imposed leader of Chechnya has ruled with an iron fist, cracking down severely on radical Islamists in the province.
He has managed to keep them under control, for now.
But beneath the surface, Chechens, too scared to talk on camera, speak of a rising anger against the ruling authorities. Jihadists who once fought on these streets of Grozny have now taken the fight to the neighboring province of Dagestan. In May, a female suicide bomber attacked the central square in the capital, injuring dozens. The bombers in Russia are called Black Widows because many are the widows of Islamic radicals killed by security forces. More than a dozen Black Widows have carried out suicide missions since 2000.
Back in 1999, a group of radical Muslims attempted to turn Dagestan into an emirate ruled by Islamic Sharia law. The Russian army stepped in and quickly stamped that out. But since then, this province, home to about 2.5 million people, has today some 3,000 mosques and growing.
Sasha, another secret Christian believer, lived next door to 2 Islamic insurgents killed during a police raid. We've taken similar precautions to protect his identity. Sasha says he actively shares the gospel with Muslims in the North Caucasus. But it isn't easy. He was twice beaten by Muslims.
I always thought God would protect me as his son, but then I understood that if we have the honor to believe in our Savior, then we also have the honor to endure things that he went through in some ways. When we are persecuted and feel physical pressure in our lives, then we in reality start to understand and feel how close God is to us.
The provinces of the North Caucasus are one of the least evangelized places on earth. The rising Islamic fervor has prevented many Russians from even visiting the region. But for Ramza, Sasha, and other believers who work quietly in the shadows, it's a risk worth taking to make the name of Christ known.
Only Jesus can change lives and bring the hope people are looking for.
George Thomas, CBN News, Makhachkala, Dagestan.
Do you love fluffy cheese omelets, scrumptious baked apple desserts, savory French onion soup, melt in your mouth chocolate souffle? Now you can make delicious gourmet food in minutes right in your microwave with StoneWave, the new microwave cooking miracle. Look, slice an apple, add cinnamon, sugar, and butter, and cook for 3 minutes in the microwave. It smells like homemade apple pie. Top with ice cream for a delectable dessert. Watch this. Core a sweet onion, add butter in a bouillon cube, pop it in the microwave for 4 minutes, and you won't believe the heavenly aroma. Cut it up for tasty toppings or a French onion soup bursting with flavor. The secret is the specially designed chimney that allows steam to escape while the custom dome circulates heat evenly, infusing flavor into food. Best of all, the ceramic surface is non-stick. No need for butter, fats, or oil, so it's the best way ever to make eggs. Simply place it in the microwave for 1 minute for a perfect fluffy omelet. Then just cover for a few seconds and look, it melts like magic. This microwave fits 4 StoneWaves, so you can make custom omelets in the microwave for the whole family. Poached eggs are great, but what a pain to make. Just pop an egg into StoneWave and in just 1 minute, you've got a smooth, velvety, perfect poached egg. It's all right here in the StoneWave recipe book. All recipes in 5 minutes or less. So quick and easy, anyone can cook like a pro. You can even make a chocolate souffle just like the restaurants in only 5 minutes for just 50 cents. And yes, right in your microwave. So decadently delicious, you'll be amazed. You get the amazing StoneWave made of ceramic stoneware with a special hollow handle that stays cool enough to hold, plus all the recipes and incredible value for just $10. But call now and you can double your order. That's 2 for the price of 1. Call or click now and find out about free shipping.
Call 1-800-287-0762, but hurry and you can get a special offer second StoneWave with all of today's orders. Call 1-800-287-0762. That's 1-800-287-0762. Call now.
1 year ago today, we reported on the crash that left missionary Steve Saint partly paralyzed.
Yeah, the son of martyred missionary Nate Saint was injured during a test flight of his newly invented flying car. Here's his update.
Every morning when I wake up, when I see the light outside, I know the first move I make, my whole body can go into spasms. None of us knows what our life is going to be like. I wouldn't mind dying, but if I'm going to stay here longer, I want it to count, and I want my grandchildren to see that life isn't good when everything is fitting together right. Life is good because we know that we have a hope.
Wow. Steve's ministry theme for the last decade has been, let God write your story. Amazing man. I've met him in person. He walks the talk. And we wish him Godspeed and total health in Jesus' name.
Man of great faith. Well, that's all for this edition of Newswatch.
Remember, you can email us your comments and questions at newswatch@cbn.com. We'll see you tomorrow.
Take care.
Bye.